A Kurdish militant group has claimed responsibility for Sunday's Ankara car bomb. The Kurdistan Freedom Hawks say the attack targeted the heart of fascist Turkey, where they say the wildest slaughter decisions are taken by those in control. 37 people were killed in Sunday's attack. The blast tore through a crowded transport hub, sending burning debris over an area close to the Justice and Interior Ministries. The Kurdistan Freedom Hawks, or TAK, was once connected with the banned Kurdistan Workers' Party, the PKK. The group said it was also to blame for the February car bombing in Ankara that killed 29 people. The group described Sunday's car bombing as revenge for security operations in the mainly Kurdish southeast of Turkey that have been underway since July. Analysts say that the Turkish military offensives against the PKK in Turkey and northern Iraq gives Kurdish militants an incentive to stage such attacks. The Kurdistan Freedom Hawks have threatened further assaults.
European Union leaders and Turkey are due to pick up where they left off last week in Brussels as they attempt to finalise a pact on curbing migration to Europe. One aim is to stop people risking their lives via the Aegean Sea route. In this Turkish town of Basmane in Izmir, migrants who've made it this far meet up with people traffickers and await a departure time. The hotels are cheap and the shops sell such things as life jackets and other necessities for taking the risky journey to Greece. Not only Syrians but Afghans, Iraqis and Libyans want to leave. Fatih, a local in the town, has noticed a fall in the numbers going.
Over
the last few weeks, many people, many Syrians, who said goodbye to us for good, about 90%, couldn't go. They came back and said we couldn't. The reason, they say, Germany doesn't accept us anymore, or the weather's bad. But there are many people who are planning to go in the summer. With the weather improving, time is of the essence for the EU and Turkey to begin implementing the joint action plan. Our reporter in Basmane says the activity in Basmane, which is a meeting point for those who are trying to get to Europe, has diminished in recent weeks. The impact of any possible measures being carried out as a consequence of the deal with Turkey will only be seen clearly when the summer comes.
Euronews, Izmir.
A ferry load of people disembarks at Piraeus. The thousands here are now being housed in makeshift accommodation at the port of Athens. Tens of thousands are stranded across Greece after border restrictions blocked the route through the Balkans to Western Europe. Here in Piraeus, volunteers are donating food, clothes, blankets and medicines. For Italian Prime Minister Matteo Renzi, the situation is hard to understand. Europe can organise expeditions to Mars, he says, but in Idomeni we have women washing their newborn babies with bottled water in so-called refugee camps. This is happening in Greece, in Europe, on our continent. Any agreement with Turkey must respect our values. The unprecedented human flow is causing problems right along the Mediterranean coast. More than 600 people were brought ashore here in southern Italy on Wednesday. They'd been rescued by a German ship off the coast of Libya.
Protests have erupted across Brazil after President Dilma Rousseff appointed her predecessor, Lula da Silva, as her chief of staff. The anger has been fueled by the release of a taped conversation claiming the move is meant to protect Lula from prosecution. President Dilma Rousseff has maintained her loyalty to Lula despite his being charged last week with money laundering and fraud. The tape, which has caused outrage across the country, was released by the judge heading Brazil's biggest corruption investigation in history. It's claimed it reveals Rousseff offering the appointment to Lula. The recording was made without the participants' knowledge. Under Brazilian law, cabinet ministers can only be tried by the country's Supreme Court. In response to the tape release, the presidential palace has issued a statement calling it an affront to the privacy of the presidency and a violation of the constitution. Lula and other influential figures have become embroiled in a scandal which began with the state-owned oil company Petrobras and kickbacks for lucrative contracts. Lula denies any wrongdoing and says the allegations are aimed at preventing him from running for president again in 2018.
Four people have been arrested in this neighbourhood in Paris as part of a wider investigation into a possible plot to stage an attack in France. 3 men and a woman were reportedly arrested at dawn here in the 18th arrondissement of Paris.
Nous avons eu concernant un individu qui avait...
French Interior Minister Bernard Cazeneuve says they have information suggesting violent attacks were being planned in the country.
Cet individu aurait pu être en relation.
We think there could have been contact with people in Syria and with members of Islamic State, he says. Officers say at least one of those arrested, a 28-year-old French national, has been living under house arrest since last month. His partner was also detained along with 2 French brothers of Turkish origin.
Protesters in Kiev hold a silent commemoration for Ryashat Amertov, a Tatar who, along with other pro-Ukrainian activists, were either killed or went missing amid Russia's invasion of the Crimean Peninsula. According to Human Rights Watch, Amertov's death was symbolic of the lawlessness of the time. It's now 2 years on from the referendum which led to President Putin signing a treaty of accession with the self-declared Republic of Crimea. During that time, official figures claimed around 45,000 people left Crimea, over half of them Tatars. This is Jamala, a singer who originates from Crimea but who is about to represent Ukraine in this year's Eurovision Song Contest with a song about the 1944 forced deportation of Tatars in the Stalin era. My aim, she says, is to raise this issue, to tell the history of my family, to tell the history of Crimean Tatars, and to avoid such things happening in the future. I want history to teach people.
Це ніколи не сталося знов. Щоб історія повчала людей.
Our correspondent in Ukraine says Ukraine's desire to reclaim Crimea has been overshadowed by other concerns. There still remains, however, the unsolved problem of thousands of displaced people from the peninsula, most of whom are unemployed and forced to live on benefits.
Euronews, Kyiv.
On the same day, North Korea sentenced a US student to 15 years in prison with hard labor. Washington announced tough new sanctions. Otto Warmbier was paraded before the cameras to beg for forgiveness for stealing a propaganda banner from a hotel. The 21-year-old was arrested over the new year at the end of a 5-day group tour.
The allegations for which this individual was arrested and imprisoned would not give rise to arrest or imprisonment in the United States or in just about any other country in the world. It is increasingly clear that the North Korean government seeks to use these U.S. citizens as pawns to pursue a political agenda.
The sanctions over North Korea's recent nuclear and missile testing include the freezing of North Korean government property in the U.S. and a ban on U.S. exports to North Korea.
Washington, D.C.'s subway system is to reopen after a day-long shutdown for emergency safety checks. During an inspection of the system, more than 26 defects requiring repair were discovered. The shutdown, however, caused many complaints from passengers who said they'd been given little warning. 5 newly restored houses, which were once buried under the volcanic ash of Mount Vesuvius, can now be seen in the ruins of the ancient Roman city of Pompeii. The new exhibit, which allows visitors to walk through the ancient homes and their gardens, is called Myth and Nature from Greece to Pompeii and will remain open until October. Sylvia Anderson, who was famous for being the voice of Lady Penelope in the popular 1960s television show Thunderbirds, has died aged 88. Anderson, who co-created the marionette puppet show with her late ex-husband Jerry, also worked on similar projects including Joe 90, Stingray and Captain Scarlet. Frank Sinatra Jr., the son of legendary actor and singer Frank Sinatra, has died suddenly at the age of 72. He was set to perform several of his father's songs at a venue in Florida, but the event was cancelled when the singer fell ill. Sinatra Jr. followed his father into the music industry, becoming his musical director.